Imagine running a manufacturing business where the money in your corporate account literally loses purchasing power in the time it takes between placing an order for raw materials
Yeah.
and the delivery truck actually showing up at your warehouse.
Right. Yeah.
But then simultaneously, just down the street, you've got this small team of freelance software developers, and they're seeing their personal wealth and purchasing power just multiply month over month.
It's wild.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tearing into the Myanmar economic outlook for 2026 to 2028, navigating this incredibly turbulent landscape. It's defined by immense pressure, some seriously resilient survival tactics, and highly lucrative digital opportunities.
Yeah, that paradox you just described, the rapid decay of traditional capital sitting right next to this explosive growth of digital capital. I mean, that is the defining characteristic of this market right now.
Yeah.
We're analyzing a highly detailed economic forecast today to answer some really critical structural questions like, will the US dollar continue its aggressive climb against the local currency? And maybe more importantly, where are the hidden structural business opportunities that actually thrive in this kind of high-friction environment?
But before we go down this rabbit hole, let's lay down an essential caveat for you, the listener. We are looking at an economic forecast today, not a crystal ball.
Definitely not.
We're dealing with a macroeconomic environment that is extraordinarily volatile, where the trajectory shifts wildly based on, monetary policy changes, global trade conditions, natural disasters, and internal political dynamics.
Exactly. The goal here isn't to guarantee a specific future or plot a perfectly straight line to 2028.
Right.
The objective is to understand the underlying mechanics of the current data so you can actually recognize the macroeconomic forces at play. It's about building a mental model to make highly informed decisions when the ground underneath you is, constantly shifting.
Exactly. So whether you are an entrepreneur trying to keep operations afloat, an investor looking for contrarian plays, or simply a learner fascinated by how emerging markets adapt and evolve under extreme duress, this deep dive is your roadmap.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we look at where the economy is heading in 2026, we have to establish the baseline of what is happening right now.
And the baseline data paints a picture of an economy being severely compressed, like from multiple sides simultaneously.
Yeah.
You have a significantly weakened local currency, the kyat, intensely high inflation, soaring fuel and transport overhead, a near collapse in domestic demand, and a really stark retreat of foreign direct investment.
Trying to run a business in this environment sounds like trying to sail a ship with a leak in the hull, which is that weak domestic demand, while fighting a massive headwind, which is the dropping foreign investment.
That's a perfect analogy, actually. And to take that mechanical idea a step further, the friction in the engine is actively destroying the components.
Right.
These macro factors don't just exist in silos, they aggressively feed off each other in this destructive cascade effect. So when foreign capital stops flowing in, the local currency fundamentally weakens because there are just fewer foreign reserves anchoring it.
And a weaker kyat immediately penalizes anything that moves within the country, right?
Exactly.
Because fuel has to be imported, so transportation costs just skyrocket overnight. The local manufacturer paying to run a diesel backup generator or transport goods to a market suddenly sees their overhead double.
Yeah, and they have to pass that cost on to the consumer, which spikes local inflation, which then further kills domestic demand. It's just a brutal feedback loop.
What's driving the core of that loop, though?
Well, what's fascinating here is the mechanics of imported inflation. That is the most critical pressure point in this entire economic model.
Okay, break that down for us.
Sure. Myanmar is highly dependent on imports for baseline structural survival. We're talking fuel, medicine, heavy machinery, vital agricultural inputs.
Break the non-negotiables.
Exactly. And because global trade settles almost exclusively in US dollars, the foreign exchange rate dictates the baseline cost of living.
Wait, if everything imported is getting more expensive, but local salaries aren't going up, how are consumers keeping their heads above water? Doesn't this eventually force the entire domestic economy to just grind to a halt?
It does force a radical shift. The data shows the economy enters a profound structural survival mode. Consumer behavior undergoes a forced evolution.
Like cutting out luxuries.
Way beyond that. People eliminate discretionary spending entirely. They aggressively trade down to lower-tier goods, buying cheaper, lower-quality substitutes just to stretch their wages. The overall velocity of money, the rate at which cash changes hands, it slows to an absolute crawl.
And businesses have to react defensively to that, I imagine.
Whoa, absolutely. When a retail chain or a service provider sees that collapse in foot traffic and spending, they freeze hiring, they halt all capital expansion, and they strictly cap wages.
Which I'm guessing further diminishes the consumer's purchasing power, tightening the vice grip even more.
Exactly. It's a textbook contraction cycle. The purchasing power collapses and the internal economic engine starves.
Okay, so if the kyat is hemorrhaging value because imports are constantly draining capital out of the system, there's only one mathematical way to plug that drain, right?
Right.
You have to physically pull foreign currency back in. That puts the entire weight of macroeconomic survival on the shoulders of the export sector.
Yes, that is the traditional physical defense mechanism for an emerging market under currency pressure.
Makes sense.
And for Myanmar, agriculture and garment manufacturing serve as the primary critical pillars here. We are looking at massive volumes of rice, beans, corn, seafood, and textiles acting as the fundamental export engines.
So exports are basically the country's economic immune system.
Exactly.
The more physical goods you ship out, the stronger your defense against the dominating U.S. dollar.
It's a mechanism of currency stabilization. When a local agricultural firm sells, say, 1,000 tons of corn to an international buyer, that transaction settles in foreign currency.
Okay.
That capital flows back into the local banking system, which increases the gross supply of U.S. dollars floating in the domestic market.
Which directly addresses the supply-side problem causing the inflation in the first place. More dollars entering the ecosystem means the downward pressure on the local kyat is somewhat neutralized.
It creates a crucial buffer, yeah. A robust export pipeline generates the hard currency required to purchase those non-negotiable imports, like the fuel and the medicine, without triggering a total, unrecoverable collapse of the exchange rate.
But, I mean, physical exports come with a massive logistical footprint. You
Really?
still have to pay for the expensive imported fuel to get that corn from the farm to the port. You have to navigate the domestic infrastructure challenges, and you're highly vulnerable to physical supply chain disruptions.
Yeah, the friction is still incredibly high.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because while traditional exports are the classic defense, there's a completely modern frontier showing surprising growth despite the crisis, right?
Yes, the economic crisis is acting as a brutal, accelerated catalyst for advanced digital adoption. We're seeing intense, measurable growth in highly specific digital sectors.
Like what specifically?
Digital marketing, e-commerce, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, online services, freelancing, and software development.
Wow.
This raises an important question, though. Why these sectors?
Sure.
It's because a borderless digital economy allows workers to transcend local geographic and infrastructural hurdles.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second and look at the mechanics of this.
Yeah.
How do you run an AI development agency or a cloud computing consultancy in an environment where rolling power outages or infrastructure challenges might be a daily reality?
It's tough.
Yeah. How does that actually work mechanically? It sounds great on paper, but the reality must be incredibly difficult.
It requires extreme resourcefulness, but the model is highly effective. You isolate your critical infrastructure and you export human capital instead of physical goods.
Oh, I see.
These digital firms and independent freelancers invest heavily in off-grid redundancies. Solar power setups, high-capacity battery backups, and satellite internet receivers.
They build their own micro bubble of stability.
Exactly. Once a digital workstation is powered and connected, the geographical location of the worker becomes entirely irrelevant to the global market.
Because you aren't trying to sell custom software to a local manufacturer who is freezing their budget to survive.
Right, you're deploying code for a client in Singapore, managing cloud architecture for a firm in Europe, or running AI data models for a tech startup in the US.
And the crucial component here is the settlement of payment. These digital professionals are pulling foreign currency directly into their local accounts.
Yes, it functions identically to exporting a physical ton of rice, but the overhead is incredibly low.
Yeah.
There are no diesel costs to ship an algorithm.
Right.
There are no border checkpoints for a graphic design file. The digital worker is pulling foreign capital into the local economy using nothing but raw human capital and internet bandwidth.
The irony is just staggering when you really think about it. An economic crisis is actually accelerating a pivot toward advanced technologies like AI and cloud computing for survival. They aren't just trendy tech buzzwords in this environment. They are the electric motor bolted onto the side of the failing combustion engine to completely bypass the lack of fuel.
That's a great way to put it. And when you run the models for the next 2 to 3 years based on these converging, opposing forces, the economy essentially fractures into three distinct potential paths.
The 2026 to 2028 scenarios.
Exactly. The data models outline a best case, medium case, and worst case scenario.
Let's start with the optimistic model.
Okay, so in the best case scenario, macro stability gradually returns. Internal conditions settle, which allows foreign direct investment to slowly increase.
Okay, that sounds promising.
Smooth trade allows the GDP to find a gradual upward trajectory. The pressure on the currency eases, and businesses can actually forecast their growth again.
A steady, albeit slow, healing process.
Yeah.
But then the data models a medium case scenario, which feels much less like a recovery and much more like a war of attrition.
The medium case is arguably the most grueling. The economy technically grows, but very, very slowly. The soaring operating costs and persistent inflation force businesses into a perpetual state of endurance. Profit margins are razor thin. It is a slow, grinding reality where companies are simply surviving month to month rather than scaling or innovating.
Then we hit the worst case scenario. And looking at the worst case triggers like global energy spikes or natural disasters, aren't these total wildcards?
Completely.
How terrifying is it that the recovery depends on factors entirely outside of local control?
It's deeply unsettling. It exposes the raw, inherent vulnerability of emerging markets. Domestic policy, AI adoption, and agile business models can provide a substantial buffer, but they cannot build an impenetrable fortress against global macroeconomic shock.
Because if the price of importing diesel suddenly jumps 30% overnight due to a global supply issue,
The imported inflation cascade we discussed earlier triggers immediately. It accelerates the decay of the local currency regardless of how much local innovation is happening. Myanmar's economy is deeply tethered to the volatile realities of the global system.
so what does this all mean for the listener? Because if the overall economic recovery hinges on wildcards outside of local control, how do you practically prepare? You can't just cross your fingers and hope for the best case scenario.
No, you can't. But the analysis actually provides a very aggressive, concrete playbook for survival and growth.
Okay, lay it out for us.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, preparation and adaptability are the only true shields against economic unpredictability. For businesses operating in this environment, the absolute mandate is strict, uncompromising operational cost control combined with aggressive income diversification.
Meaning, you cannot afford to be overly leveraged in a single local demographic whose purchasing power is decaying.
Exactly. You have to fully embrace digital tech. You have to hunt for export opportunities, whether that means shifting your physical manufacturing to target neighboring countries or pivoting your service business to target Western digital markets.
And deploy automation aggressively.
Yes, learn AI and automation. But this isn't about replacing your workers just to save a paycheck. It's about utilizing AI to multiply the output of your existing team so you can handle larger international contracts without drowning in new overhead costs.
What about for individuals?
For individuals, the directive is equally clear and urgent: upskill immediately.
Right?
The market value of purely physical, unspecialized, or strictly local administrative labor is being heavily compressed by inflation. Learn new skills, boost your digital literacy, and practice airtight financial management.
So things like AI and digital literacy aren't just corporate buzzwords in Myanmar right now. They are literal survival mechanisms.
They are the life rafts you deploy when the traditional economic engine is sputtering. They are the specific tools required to decouple your personal or corporate stability from the extreme volatility of the local macro environment.
To distill this entire deep dive, Myanmar's economy faces immense, undeniable challenges. There's no minimizing that data.
No, absolutely not.
But a resilient spirit combined with digital and export opportunities offers a clear, tangible path forward. In any economy, those who understand the data and prepare ahead of time are the ones who can weather the storm.
The capacity for human and corporate adaptation in these extreme economic environments is truly remarkable to analyze.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, the listener, for tuning into this deep dive. But before you go, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We talked a lot about the digital silver lining, right? The freelancers and software developers using their skills to earn foreign currency online. It's a genius survival strategy on an individual level.
It really is.
But if the brightest minds and most skilled tech workers dedicate all their time to serving foreign clients just to survive, What happens to the local domestic industries that desperately need that exact same talent to rebuild the internal economy?
That is a fascinating problem.
Right. When the storm is raging, locking your sights onto the digital stars might save your business today. But eventually, when the winds die down, someone still has to rebuild the physical ship.
Very true.
Till next time, keep diving deep.